Well, last night the Electoral Commission announced the results for 10 out of Iraq's 18 provinces, and the remaining 8 provinces will most likely be announced this evening. So far, these elections appear to be a major rejection of the political establishment that has governed Iraq since the fall of Saddam Hussein in 2003. Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi, as well as former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, both from the Dawa party, are the biggest losers in these elections. Muqtada Sadr, with his Sa'irun alliance, appears to be leading the polls at the moment. He really managed to capitalize on voters' frustration with the government, specifically their complaints about corruption. He has in fact led for months protests against corruption in the government and really managed to mobilize people in the streets to turn out and vote. He has also managed to form a strategic alliance with the communists and some liberals to attract some secular voters, and that has really paid off for him. Now, the second in the polls right now is the Conquest Alliance, which is an Iranian-backed umbrella group of parties led by Hadi al-Amiri. They appear to be, they have won 4 out of these 10 provinces that have been counted so far, and are currently second in the polls. Now, it remains to be seen when all 18 provinces are counted what the final tally will be.
And so once we know the result, once all 18 provinces are counted, what happens next?
Well, then the parties will sit down and they will begin the process of negotiating a governing alliance and choosing a prime minister, a process that can take months. If we look towards past elections, that it can be very complicated. The most important thing is that the prime minister, he has to be acceptable by regional as well as global powers. So he has to be somebody who can work with Iran as well as Saudi Arabia as well as the United States. And this is where things will be really interesting, because both Sadr Sa'irun as well as Conquest have a rather hostile stance towards the United States. And the interesting thing is also that even though they're both Shia-led parties, they're both not very favorable towards the United States, they differ on one key thing, which is that Muqtada Sadr is very much against Iranian influence in Iraq, which is of course what Conquest Alliance is known for. So even though these two parties are currently leading in the polls, it's very difficult to imagine them actually working together in a coalition government, which opens up, of course, the room for negotiations with other parties, like, for example, the State of Law Alliance of former Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. And the bottom line is that even though these two parties are leading in the polls, they may not be the ones actually nominating the Prime Minister, because Hadi al-Amiri will not be acceptable to Saudi Arabia or the United States. Muqtada Sadr, of course, himself is not running. He has never held a government position, but he's also somebody that would not be, or his representatives would not be that acceptable to Iran. So there is still a small chance that even though Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi did poorly in these elections, that he may actually still end up being Prime Minister, simply because that post has to be one that is negotiated and accepted by such a big range of actors.